Disney and Pixar have long been the leaders in animation, but there's always a competing company looking for the next big hit. Nothing has gotten more personal than the box office battle between Disney and DreamWorks. The competing companies have released several movies with similarities, and they're often at the same time. See the film comparisons and decide which side you're on. Before you get animated, click subscribe. You'll join our notification squad and be the first to know of new content. Can you guess which movie is represented by these emoji? Stay tuned at the end of the video to find out. Turbo and Cars. It's easy to compare both DreamWorks' Turbo and Pixar's Cars as racing films, but the heart of each film goes beyond that. The characters in the movies include a snail with a passion for racing and a car with a passion for racing. As each character tries to overcome the odds, they get help from a wacky collection of friends, each with their own little quirks and personality traits. Both films also end with a huge climactic race, but that's a given for any racing movie. The biggest comparison between the two movies is the small-town story and mentality of a loving community. In Cars, a whole subplot is devoted to the rundown world of Route 66. The scenic highway goes through the small town of Radiator Springs, and the residents there are bummed out about the lack of tourists. By the end of the movie, the town is revitalized and cars from all over the world are visiting. In Turbo, the same premise applies to a small closed strip mall known as Starlight Plaza. By the end of the film, the whole plaza has been reopened and is extremely popular with tourists. We guess the filmmakers wanted to emphasize racing is family-friendly as much as possible through this theme and plot device. Shrek and Monsters, Inc. Released in 2001, Shrek and Monsters, Inc. appear to be vastly different movies. Both may have monsters, but Shrek is set in a fairy tale world, while Monsters, Inc. is set in current times. Sully may be furry, and Shrek may be green and slimy, but there are a lot of similar themes once you break down the core of the films. Both movies deal with monsters living in a human world. Shrek is mistreated by humans, looked at strangely, but ultimately falls in love with a human. In Monsters, Inc., humans fear the monsters so much that their screams provide power, but ultimately Sully falls in love with a human girl in a fatherly way. The premise may be different, but the acceptance of someone who looks different is the main theme conveyed between the stories. They both use this theme in the form of monsters to get the message across. These films both competed head-to-head for the first ever Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, and Shrek beat out Monsters, Inc., giving a nice win to DreamWorks Animation. Following the success of each film, sequels were planned. Both Monsters University and Shrek Forever After followed a prequel plot, which explored earlier years of the characters.
You hate it. Ugh, I should have gotten you the Alex alarm clock. That's the one, that's the big seller.
Madagascar and the Wild. There's no deep diving into this one. Madagascar and the Wild are so similar, it's surprising one company didn't sue another over copyright issues. Just the posters alone can showcase the similarities between these two, but we'll break it down even further for you. Animals living in a New York City zoo decide to escape and enter the world. Which movie were we talking about? Both of them. In Madagascar, the lion, hippo, zebra, and giraffe end up stranded on the tropical island of Madagascar. In the wild, a lion, giraffe, koala, and snake all end up in Africa. Along the way, each of these groups meets a bunch of other crazy and wild animals, learn life lessons, and ultimately find a way to get back home. For the wild characters, they end up back at the zoo. For the Madagascar animals, they fly on a bad plane and end up in Africa for their sequel, Back to Africa. Too bad they didn't plan out some type of crossover scene for the sequel film. When comparing both, Madagascar has a bigger cast, featuring Chris Rock, Ben Stiller, and David Schwimmer, among others. The Wild is largely forgotten about and wasn't successful enough to warrant any sequels.
My fellow boob! I has saved us again! Ow! Good lord. No! Up a bit. Perfect! Walk away! My fellow...
Home and Mars Needs Moms. One of Disney's biggest bombs of all time is the animated film Mars Needs Moms. The movie lost an estimated $100 million as the story didn't connect with audiences and provide the right tone for the film. On the other hand, DreamWorks' Home was a huge hit, featured the voices of Rihanna and Jim Parsons, and has led to a Netflix animated spin-off series. It's crazy how the world of Hollywood works, because both films feature extremely similar stories with vastly different animation styles. Mars Needs Moms follows the story of a young boy who must search for his mother on Mars after she's abducted by aliens. Home follows the story of a young girl who searches for her mother after an alien invasion separated them. Along the way, the characters team up with one of the friendly alien creatures as their journey unfolds. Both movies feature a battle with an alien leader at the end, and feature emotional scenes of the mothers reunited with their children. Home didn't take itself too seriously, by featuring a lot of goofy comedy and a lighthearted animation style. Mars Needs Moms was filmed in the style of the Polar Express, and looked a little too realistic to fit with the alien abduction story.
Pull the lever, Kronk. Wrong lever!
The Road to El Dorado and The Emperor's New Groove. In the year 2000, DreamWorks and Disney were not focused on the new millennium and the future. Instead, they both traveled back in time to showcase stories featured in Latin America. Both The Road to El Dorado and The Emperor's New Groove feature similar settings, time periods, and are ultimately a buddy adventure comedy, which include travels through vast forests and jungles. Each film also features music from huge artists, like Elton John and Sting. Even though they were made by two different companies, the films feature a similar animation style and character design. These designs are so similar, many people have created crossover videos mixing the two films together. The production of the films both started at different times, and The Emperor's New Groove could have been a lot more similar to El Dorado when it was first developed as Kingdom of the Sun. When word came out about the similarities between the two, DreamWorks and Disney raced to get their films completed. The Road to El Dorado came out several months before The Emperor's New Groove, but both films ended up doing poorly at the box office. Even with a poor showing, The Emperor's New Groove got a sequel entitled Kronk's New Groove.
Let's get wrecked!
Sinbad and Treasure Planet. How does this always happen? Disney and DreamWorks must be dealing with some type of mole workers, because within less than a year of release, DreamWorks released Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas, and Disney released Treasure Planet. Both stories feature ship-riding adventures with fantastical elements, crazy actions, and silent sidekicks, one in the form of a dog and the other a floating pile of futuristic goop. Even more than the basic plot of the films, the animation style is very similar. All of the main characters and props are designed using traditional animation techniques. Then, both movies have added a lot of CG animation. For Sinbad, the CG is used for a number of the sea monsters showcased in the movie. In Treasure Planet, some of the ships and space elements are designed in CG. The mix between the two doesn't feel right, and audiences probably agreed. Both movies were huge bombs, with forgettable stories and a lack of excitement for viewers. Each movie felt like it has been made before, and neither of them did any favors for each other by having such similar themes and designs. Even when comparing the two films, it's hard to sit through the whole trailer.
Behold, the power of God.
The Prince of Egypt and Mulan. 1998 saw the release of DreamWorks' The Prince of Egypt and Disney's Mulan. Both films have incredible animation, great stories, and really strong main characters. No one would compare the two films by glancing at them, but after analyzing the plot and story, there are actually a lot of similarities. Both stories center on the journey of a young warrior who sacrifices a lot to help save their family, village, and the citizens they live with. The journey of strength and survival is very prominent in both films and the true heart of the stories. The Prince of Egypt and Mulan are both based off of legendary tales. The Prince of Egypt comes directly from the biblical book of Exodus and features the story of Moses. Mulan is actually based off of the Ballad of Mulan, a story which is centuries old. Both films were major successes for their companies. The Prince of Egypt held the title of the highest-grossing non-traditional animated movie for several years. The success of Mulan spawned the sequel, Mulan 2, and the character is still used for a lot of different Disney products, games, and designs. Both films stand out on their own for great animation and storytelling. Flushed Away and Ratatouille. After focusing on cars, toys, and underwater animals, I guess DreamWorks and Disney finally thought it was time to put the spotlight on rats. That's right, in 2006, DreamWorks released Flushed Away. Less than a year later, Pixar and Disney released Ratatouille. The rat-centered stories are very different from each other, but both have a somewhat similar character. In Ratatouille, we're introduced to Remy, a streetwise rat with the ability to sniff out poisons and rise above the rest of his dirty family. Despite wanting a better life and better food for himself, he cannot deny his urges to help his family thrive and survive. In Flushed Away, a similar rat character is presented in the form of Rita. Voiced by Kate Winslet, Rita is also a streetwise rat who can build things, acts a lot like a human, and will do anything to support her family. Oddly enough, Rita and Remy are pretty similar names. This is pretty much where the similarities end though. While it's strange to see two animated rat movies get released within a year of each other, both have very different themes. Flushed Away is more focused on a love story, while Ratatouille is more focused on a love of food.
Oh no! I'm lost! Where's the line? It just went away.
Ants and A Bug's Life. The war between Disney and DreamWorks actually began with just two little insects. If you think it was just a coincidence Ants and A Bug's Life would get released so close to each other, you'd be completely wrong. The animated feud between these companies started when DreamWorks' Jeff Katzenberg left Disney with very bitter feelings. Through his contacts, he found out about the production of A Bug's Life, and the race to get the films made was on. The plot for Ants and A Bug's Life can be described in almost exactly the same way. A small, eccentric insect must rise up, gain confidence, and become a leader in order to save their colony. Both characters end up falling in love with the princess of the colony and use love as a little extra motivation. The animation styles in the films were vastly different, with Disney choosing a lighter tone over DreamWorks' realistic design. Despite A Bug's Life starting production first, Ants went on the move and got released first. It's officially known as the second full-length computer-animated film, behind Toy Story. A Bug's Life opened about a month later, and managed to gross a lot more than the DreamWorks animation.
Touch the butt.
Finding Nemo and Shark Tale. In 2003 and 2004, children got to enjoy two underwater animated adventures. Both DreamWorks and Pixar created beautiful animations and designs, with Shark Tale and Finding Nemo, but the results were very different. Finding Nemo is a timeless story about a clownfish in search of his lost son. Shark Tale is essentially a mob film set underwater. The movie relied on cheap songs, pop culture gags, and big-name voice actors like Will Smith to try and draw in an audience. Tone and style-wise, the films couldn't be further from each other. Other than the undersea element, one of the main comparisons the film face is the actual sharks. In Finding Nemo, Dory and Marlin come across 3 sharks. Instead of becoming their next meal, the sharks have vowed to stop eating fish as they are their friends. In Shark Tale, one of the main plots follows a shark named Lenny, who hates eating fish and refuses to do so despite the pressure from his mob boss father. The odd character choice for the sharks really stands out when comparing both films. It's only a minor part in Finding Nemo, but it's a huge plot element in Shark Tale. In the long run, Finding Nemo is the ultimate champion, making millions at the box office and spawning the massive hit sequel, Finding Dory. Wow, there you have it! What movies do you think are the most similar? Are there any that we missed? Does it annoy you that this happens so often? Let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Screen Rant on YouTube so you can stay up to date with our awesome videos. Oh, and the answer to our emoji quiz is... Thanks for watching!